Okay, in this lesson we're talking about using the unit circle and solving and evaluating trig values with sine, cosine, and tangent. So we need our unit circle paper for this, handy. The first thing that we're going to talk about to put on a unit circle is about the signs of trig functions. So there is a little thing to help you remember the signs of trig functions, and it says all students take calculus. So I'm basically looking at the first letter of each of these words. It's kind of like PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, to remember about order of operations. This is the same thing to remember about signs of the functions on the unit circle. So I'm just going to quickly make my 4 quadrants here. So this is quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. So because the first word is all, which stands for A, all of the functions, sine, cosine, and tangent, are positive. And if you notice, all of their reciprocals, so everything is positive. So I'm just going to write all. In quadrant 2, only sine, because of the S in students, only sine and its reciprocal cosecant is positive. So I'm going to say sine positive, cosecant plus positive. In quadrant 3, next one is take, T for tangent. So tangent and its reciprocal are the only things positive there. Tangent and its reciprocal. And then for quadrant 4, calculus, C, that stands for cosine and its reciprocal, secant. Those are the things positive in that quadrant. So on the next slide now, we're going to be answering some questions here. So let's go take a look. Name the quadrant where the angle lies. So what quadrant is cosine of theta, cosine of some angle greater than 0, and sine of this angle is less than 0. So I'm going to rewrite that over here. So where is, what did it say again? Okay, cosine is greater than 0, so that means positive. And at the same time, where is that angle? Less than 0 for sine, so that means negative. So you're basically looking for the quadrant where cosine is positive. So the only possible answer there is quadrant 4, correct? Because that's the only thing positive, and everything else in quadrant 4 is negative, which is that sine piece there. All right, let's take a look at number 2. Secant less than 0, cotangent less than 0. Secant of the angle less than 0, and cotangent of the angle less than 0. Now these are both reciprocal functions. So what is the same for secant? Its reciprocal is cosine, right? And then this one is tangent for cotangent. So where is secant or cosine less than 0, meaning negative? And where is cotangent or tangent also less than 0, also negative? So where are both of those two functions negative? Well, it can't be 4, cannot be 3, and it can't be 1. So the only possibility is quadrant 2. So it's just a process of elimination there. All right, moving on. Now we're going to be giving a question where we have to figure out all 6 trig functions, and they're giving us certain specifications about this angle. So they're telling us that the cosine of this angle is negative 1/4, and at the same time, it's also tangent is greater than 0. So that means tangent is positive. So I wrote there, which quadrant does this angle, so we're going to actually make a triangle, land in? We're going to sketch and label it. So I'm going to make my 4 quadrants. So we need to locate the angle first. So I'm just going to write over here, we want to locate. Where is the angle? Locate the quadrant. So we're referencing that all students take calculus thing. So where is cosine negative 1/4? So where is cosine negative and tangent positive? Has to be quadrant 3 because that's where tangent's positive and everything else is negative. So when I make this angle, I'm going to come out from the origin here, and you always want to make the angle, which is going to now go into a triangle, always sketch it to the x-axis. So I'm going to be making a right triangle because we're talking about trigonometry. So I am going to extend it up this way. Here is my upside down right triangle. I didn't want to go towards the y-axis. You always, always, always want to make your triangle to the x-axis. So locate quadrant, make your triangle always to the x-axis. All right, now we have to label it. Label. So here is my theta angle, and it's saying that cosine theta is -1/4. So now we're going back to one of the other lessons about sine, cosine, and tangent, SOHCAHTOA. Remember that? SOHCAHTOA. So cosine is adjacent divided by hypotenuse. So that means this -1 is the adjacent side, and the 4 is the hypotenuse side. So what is adjacent to this theta here? This is the side right here. I'm going to put -1. Where's the hypotenuse? Well, that's the one opposite of the right angle. So that's 4. How am I going to get the third side? We have to remember Pythagorean theorem. So to find third side, you're going to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, so let's all go ahead and plug in the numbers in the right spot. So let's look for a leg. We got -1, and 4 is the hypotenuse. Okay, now let's go ahead and evaluate. That's 1, 16, subtract this over. So we get a squared to be 15. So my third side is square root of 15. So let's go ahead and put that on the triangle. All right, so the question says find all 6 trig functions. Well, we already have number 1. We have cosine, -1/4, right? So let's go ahead and set up a nice little thing here. So, oops, let's be able to see that triangle. So we got cosine, which was given. Let's get the reciprocal, because that's easy enough. I'm just going to flip that around. So that would be -4. All right, let's get sine. So sine, remember, is, again, SOHCAHTOA. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So what is opposite? Oops, what is opposite of this theta here? That's root 15 over the hypotenuse, which is 4. So there is sine. All right, let's do tangent. Tangent is TOA, TOA. Opposite of that one is root 15. And what's the adjacent? -1. Now that I have those, I can do both reciprocal functions. All right, so basically I'm just going to flip these things around. So the reciprocal for sine was cosecant. So that's 4 over root 15. And what do I do with root 15? Can't have it in the bottom, so I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by root 15. So I get 4 root 15 over 15. Same thing for cotangent. I'm going to flip that around. So I get it to be -1 over root 15. Can't have that. So we're going to multiply it by root 15 over root 15. So I get negative square root of 15 over 15. All right, so here are my 6 answers for all 6 trig functions there. All right, we're going to do one more of these. Find the exact value of the remaining trig functions of theta when cosine of theta is 4/5. So that's positive cosine. And tangent is less than 0, negative. So we're going to follow those same steps from the previous slide. So you could pause the video, see if you can make that triangle, labeled it right, and find that third side, and then come back to see if you have the right labeling. All right, hopefully you had it in quadrant 4. That's where that triangle is, and you always go to the x-axis to make it. I labeled the 4 for adjacent, the 5 for the hypotenuse. I did my Pythagorean theorem to get my other third side, which is 3. Now pause the video again, see if you could get all 6 trig functions from that triangle using SOHCAHTOA. All right, here are all my 6 answers here with their reciprocals.